Cruella gets things done. Estella does not.
We always thought she just hated dogs. Turns out there's much more to the story. Disney's Cruella has brought so much information to light, offering really interesting contrasts and similarities to prior iterations. It seems the origin of the dramatic phrase,
Anita, darling,
has been discovered. We also get to see a much deeper relationship between Jasper and Cruella, as opposed to just the boss and henchman. Let's have a look.
So, let's begin.
There's a new Cruella in town, so let's check out the Cruellas from throughout the ages. The original, of course, was Betty Lou Gerson, voicing this animated villain in 1961.
Yes, I know. I know.
Then there was Glenn Close, the Cruella of 1996.
Accidents will happen.
And finally, Emma Stone, Cruella 2021.
I'm Cruella.
The Cruella laugh is pretty similar in every iteration, each a dramatic and aristocratic feeling cackle. The makeup has also stayed pretty true to form throughout each version. The bold red lip and fabulously unique black and white hair are essential markers for the supervillain. One difference we did see in this version is that Cruella was missing her signature long cigarette holder. Disney has a ban on smoking in their films, so it didn't make an appearance. Something Stone said actually made getting into character more difficult. We've always known Cruella to be a dog hater, especially considering her track record of dog napping and wanting to skin dogs to make coats from their fur. In every version before this one, she was eager to make a coat from the uniquely spotted fur of the dogs. Yet here, she wasn't quite there, only joking about committing the heinous act. The tables really are turned in this version, as when we first see the Dalmatians, we can actually understand why Cruella wouldn't be such a fan of them. They terrified her as a child and were the reason that she lost her foster mother. What we see in Cruella is a woman who actually loves dogs, especially her sweet companion Buddy, who's been by her side from the beginning. As for the Dalmatians themselves, they seem to be a fan of Cruella. So if we're trusting their instincts, she isn't a dog hater at all. While the relationship between the villains and dogs isn't the negative one we've always seen, Cruella does still arrange a Dalmatian dog napping with Horace and Jasper, as she has in the other versions.
If I'm going to need to repeat myself a lot, this isn't going to work out.
Anyone recognize this call?
Anita, darling.
How about this one?
Anita, darling.
What's ironic about this version is that Anita's last name is actually Darling. In the 2021 live action, we see a far more fleshed out and interesting character in Anita than ever before. Her relationship with Cruella is also much more positive than in the animated version and the first live action. The origin story of their relationship definitely helps us understand why she would have wound up for working for her in the future. As for Roger, well, their feelings for each other are pretty much the same as in any other version. Cruella and Roger just aren't the biggest fans of each other and never really were.
And it's a pleasure, Mr. Bill.
What's a pleasure?
It does seem as though Roger has been practicing his Cruella tunes for quite some time, as we see in this mid-credits scene. Definitely a bit of deja vu here. It wouldn't be the story of Cruella without Dalmatians. But in the 2021 version, we don't initially get the lovable Pongo and Perdita from previous iterations. These aggressive and fierce dogs are far from these Dalmatians we've come to know and love from 1961 and 96. While the dogs don't love her in 101 Dalmatians, they're actually pretty obedient near the end of Cruella, as we can see. Pongo and Perdita aren't the lead dogs like they were in the other movies. They do still play a role in the 2021 live action when we see them meeting Roger and Anita for the first time, setting up the 101 Dalmatians story perfectly. Although we do still have some questions about how Pongo and Perdita might be related. One thing every version of the story has in common is that there was never an actual coat made out of Dalmatians. And thank goodness. In the first live action, we get these coat designs, and then in Cruella, a fully realized Dalmatian coat. It's pretty jarring initially, especially as the Baroness realizes what's happened.
She killed my dogs.
Fortunately, she was wrong in this case. We do hear Cruella joke about making a Dalmatian fur coat in the latest iteration, but she does assure it's only a joke. For now at least, since it definitely foreshadows the future that she heads to.
I've got a few ideas.
The Jasper and Horace duo we see in Cruella are one of the biggest differences between the 2021 live action and every other iteration of the story that we've seen. How could we forget the bumbling type henchman from the 1961 animated version?
No either. Either.
And the faithful duo in the 1996 live action.
Morning, ma'am.
Sit.
This time around, the pair remains faithful to Cruella, but not without question. At one point, we even see Horace and Jasper choose to reject Cruella, until she reminds them that they are a family.
She's a boss.
We definitely get to see more of an equal dynamic instead of the boss and her henchman relationship, especially with the origins of their relationship when Jasper and Horace were actually the ones who took Cruella in when they were all children. The Jasper and Cruella relationship is one we definitely have never seen before. Audiences can absolutely ship them in this movie, something we never would have thought in the animated version or the 1996 live action. One thing we can be sure of after seeing Cruella's early days is that she has never been a good driver. We do hear her fully admit her experience with driving.
Didn't know you knew how to drive?
I don't.
What we're wondering now is if, since she fared well enough early on, she might not have ever bothered actually learning how to drive, since in these similar scenes, it doesn't look like her skills have improved at all. She really should probably just be kept off of the roads.
Get in.
We've always known the story of Cruella to be associated with Dalmatians, but in the 2021 live action, they aren't the primary pups. We get to see a spotlight on Wink and Buddy, two new dogs of the story. While the Dalmatians are the ones taking the lead in being their humans' best mates in every other version, we get to see Buddy and Tiny Wink playing major roles in pulling heists, and in Wink's case, modeling a rat suit perfectly. One of the most exciting and strongest similarities between Cruella in every version is her incredible fashion talent and skill. While they are humble beginnings, it's pretty obvious from the get-go that she's a force to be reckoned with. While her label hasn't been established yet in the 2021 version, we do get a hint from the Baroness that it is indeed in her future. One great similar view we get between the 1996 live action and 2021 live action are the peeks at Cruella's fashion designs on view for all of us to admire. Cruella's talent is evident in every era. Considering the fact that the 2021 Cruella is an origin story, it's no surprise we get a lot of differences between this and earlier versions we've seen. But the similarities are still there. What's really interesting is that director Craig Gillespie actually didn't go through other versions of the story. What does remain the same in each version is that the story is set in London. We love seeing this landscape, whether it's live action or animated. This time around, we get very different vibes, considering Cruella is set in the 70s punk era, whereas the animated version is a much tamer world in the late 50s. The 2021 live action is also the first time that the era it was set in had a really strong effect on the characters. We absolutely adore this new version, and of course, Emma Stone's take on the iconic Cruella. While this iteration is very different from every other time we've seen this story, we still get to revisit classic moments, like maniacal driving and dog napping. What was your favorite moment from the latest Disney flick?